Today I'm at the pre-Monstratensian site of Talley, which is at Talley Abbey, and this is in the heart of the old kingdom of the Deheubarth, ruled over by the great king Rhys. Now, Rhys was very much interested in seeing the development of monastic orders from France here in his part of the kingdom, and the Deheubarth in the year 1185 was to see the development of a huge site at Talley, except it didn't develop to be a huge site. This area that we're actually walking into was never really completed. They were starting to build this in about 1185. And work stopped in 1193, 8 years. But in those 8 years, they managed to really start to erect this huge gable area here of the nave. And that leads then into the chancel beyond. Look at that really interesting stairwell there that must lead somewhere interesting. So the great story about this site is that the Cistercians of Whitland were very much at odds with the pre-Monstratensians. It's the first time I've ever come across that order that came from France. It was the only house of that order, the pre-Monstratensians, established in Wales throughout the whole of the medieval period. Now, the Cistercians were basically at war, an ecclesiastical order at war with the pre-Monstratensians, and basically this lasted from 1193 all the way into 1202. Now, under the patronage of the wonderful kingdom of the Deheubarth, the funding still was placed into this site, but unfortunately the order became poorer and poorer as the house of Deheubarth started to splinter. And by the year 1277, what we do see in regards to this wonderful site, the first great war of 1277 with Edward I, led to this being a little bit on the outside of the great kingdoms that constituted Cymru after the first great war of independence. By 1282, the great kingdoms of Cymru that actually supported this wonderful site at Talley no longer existed. The Cistercians managed to grab little bits, and they even took away some of the site's canons. A canon is basically an individual that acts as a parish priest and can actually serve as a monk in this wonderful house of the Lord. Not a great fan of monastic houses, but this is one on the wrong side of the history. And then the wrong side of history is the history of Cymru itself. So without further investment, this did not develop into the great house it could have been in comparison with the likes of Tintin. Now, by the 1540s, this site had come a cropper in regards to the dissolution of the monasteries, thanks to Henry VIII. I'm a great fan of the dissolution of the monasteries. This site has a sense of great sadness about it because it didn't have the opulence and great charity bestowed upon it that we see with many English sites and Cistercian sites in the west of Cymru, which were supported by those Norman and English lords that are absent at this site. It's a great tragedy. This is almost an underdeveloped site due to the fact that we lost the great Second Independence War in 1282, 1283. Now, this plan itself is a rather interesting plan. That sort of all this area here is what was built. That area was never built. And you've got this cloister area, very much smaller. But one of the remnants of the church is that building over there, which is now the parish church. It's likely whatever canons existed at this stage by the 1540s, it's very likely that those canons converted themselves into the normal Protestant priests to serve this parish church alongside. One of the things that King Rhys, Prince Rhys, thought of in the late 1100s is that these locations should be very much funded and supported by those parishes, which was basically a dream that continued. And one of the things that did occur was that the parishes kept this church going throughout the late 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, into the 1500s, when it could have actually just gone into disrepair without the patronage of the great leaders that had this site constructed in regards to the High Bath in the 1200s. So I'd very much encourage people to visit this site. Bit of a longer video than I would have wanted, but again, you need to be here at Talley. And I really feel a great sense of sadness here, and it's not exactly brilliantly signposted as many Cadw sites are in regards to the great treasures of the great kingdoms of Cymru, but it's very well maintained, very well preserved, and as a footnote, some of the Cadw funding that we actually pay for as taxpayers done a really pretty good job with this site. It doesn't have the litter, or there's not many tourists coming here either. So anyway, I'd like to I need to turn this around if I may. I can't, but this is Karl-James Langford again at Talley, and it's well worth a visit. Thank you very much.